Call the meeting to order. Oh, please rise. And I ask you to join me in a moment of reflection about the business that's before us this evening. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please take the roll.
Alderman Basso.
Here.
Alderman Begley. Alderman Violet. Alderman Clifford.
Here.
Alderman Key.
Here.
Alderman Lewandowski.
Here.
Alderman McGrogan. Alderman McGovern.
Here.
Mayor, City Clerk, Treasurer, and Attorney are all present.
All right, fine. First thing on the agenda tonight is a special presentation. We have a presentation from Mueller LLP with the annual presentation of the 2021 financial statements, audited financial statements. So.
Second.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Bissell. I'm with PKF Mueller, and I am presenting the audit of the year ended December 31st, 2021. I believe everyone's got a copy of the statements. I'm going to start on page Roman numeral 5, which shows the certificate that was awarded for the 2020 presentation. So I wanted to make sure I pointed out that award. It's a very nice accomplishment for the city. And to my understanding, the city has submitted the current year financial statements for review for a similar award. So again, just wanted to mention that. Pages Roman numeral 8 through 11 is the independent auditor's report, and that's really our addition to the financial statements. Now this report is arranged a little bit differently than you might be familiar with, but basically it states a lot of the same information. It states that we have audited the financial statements of the city as of December 31st, 2021. It then reflects our opinion, and in our opinion, the financial statements of the city are presented fairly in all material respects at December 31st, 2021 in accordance with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. The letter goes on to talk about responsibilities of both management and the auditor. And as far as management's responsibilities, management is responsible for the preparation and the fair presentation of the statements in accordance with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. This includes the design and the implementation of internal controls related to the preparation and the presentation of the statements that are free from material misstatement. As far as our responsibility as auditors, our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the statements are free from material misstatement. And we conducted our audit in accordance with U.S. generally accepted auditing standards, as well as government auditing standards. And as such, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We identify and assess the risks of material misstatement of the statements. We obtain an understanding of relevant controls to allow us to design appropriate audit procedures, but not to express an opinion on the effectiveness of those controls. And we evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies and estimates, as well as the overall presentation of the statements. The report goes on to mention some other required information and some other information that's presented with the statements. But I'm going to go ahead and move on now to page Roman numeral 12, which is management's discussion and analysis. The MD&A, as it's called, is unaudited, but it's a really good summary of the year, and it's some good information for your review. It explains some of the financial highlights and important information that follow in the financial statements. For example, page Roman numeral 15 gives us a summary of the assets, liabilities, and the deferred amounts for both the current and the prior year for the city. And as we can see, total assets are up from last year by about $4.8 million. Current and other assets have increased a good deal. Non-current liabilities of the city have decreased this year by about $4.1 million, while deferred inflows have increased by about $2.3 million. And a significant factor in all of these changes from last year to this year relates to the pension liabilities of the city and how they're reflected. And those liabilities and related amounts can change depending on the rates and the assumptions used by the actuaries that calculate those liabilities, as well as market performance. So I wanted to make sure to mention that. When all is said and done, net position has improved by about $5 million in 2021. And at year end, the city is showing an overall net position of about $25.9 million. Page Roman numeral 16 shows a table with details about that increase. And as we can see, revenues have increased this year. That's due to additional grant revenues that were received. And also it's partly a rebound from prior year COVID effects. So again, revenues have increased. Expenses of the city were fairly consistent with the prior year. And again, as we can see, there's a $5 million increase in that position. And again, a significant factor in that increase relates to those changes in the pension amounts that I spoke about. Page Roman numeral 18 provides some analysis of the city's funds. And the city operates on a daily basis, on a fund basis. So governmental funds reported ending fund balance of about $12.4 million at year end. The governmental funds fund balance increased by about $2.3 million this year. And that increase can be seen primarily in the general fund. State income tax and sales taxes have increased from the prior year. And federal grant revenues were also received in the current year and impacts that amount. At year end, the general fund had about $5.9 million of fund balance. About $5.8 million of that is considered unassigned, which means it's available for the continuing operations of the city. And again, is available for day-to-day operations. General fund balance increased about $1.9 million this year. And the general fund is really the primary operating fund of the city. Another important fund that has significant activity is the water and sewer fund, which saw a $885,000 increase in that position this year. Moving on, page Roman numeral 19 provides some budgetary highlights for the general fund. Again, that's the primary fund of the city. And as we can see there, one of the things I wanted to mention here is that actual expenditures of the city were in total about 5% less than had been budgeted for 2021. A couple reasons for that, those expenditures being less were that medical insurance and personnel costs were less than anticipated in some areas. Page Roman numeral 20 has some good discussion of economic factors that the city will face in the coming year and years. So again, that's some good information for your review. So that's really a summary of the MD&A. Now the statements themselves follow the MD&A, but again, the MD&A gives a pretty good overview of the statements that follow. So just kind of moving on through the statements a little bit, some of the more important statements that you'll see during your review. Pages 5 and 6 show the balance sheets of the city's governmental funds, again, which I discussed a little bit earlier. Pages 8 through 11 show the changes in those fund balances for the year. So again, that's a really good summary of the funds of the city in total, and presents it all in one place. Pages 6 through 17 show the statements of net position of the city's proprietary funds, which again is the water and sewer fund being the primary proprietary fund. And the proprietary funds had about $14.3 million of net position at year end. Page 18 shows the changes in net position for the year for those funds. And again, the statements up near the front of the financial statements present really all of the information in one place, and it is a good summary for you. Page 23 is where the footnotes begin for the city statements. And the footnotes present some information about the city and the policies of the city. So I'm just going to go through a couple of them just for your information, some of the more detailed ones and important ones. Page 34 has some discussion of the deposits of the city and where it stands at year end. And one thing I wanted to mention here is that the city's deposits of $13.7 million were either fully insured or collateralized at year end. So it's important to note that the funds of the city were fully protected at year end. So again, there's some good information for you. Pages 37 through 39 present some information about the capital assets of the city and shows activity by type of asset. Shows the additions and the depreciation of the city's assets for both the governmental, and the proprietary funds. So again, show some detailed information for your review. Page 41 shows a table of the long-term liabilities of the city. The city's long-term liabilities include general obligation bonds, notes payable, as well as the pension liabilities that I spoke about before and other post-employment benefit liabilities. So all of the long-term liabilities are presented there in one section. One thing to note is that long-term debt was paid down during the year according to the existing payment schedules, as you can see in that schedule. Moving on to page 45, we see a table of fund balances. So this is really showing where the governmental funds, where they ended up at year end. So again, as I mentioned, the city had about $12.4 million of fund balance at year end. About 3.2 million of that is restricted at year end for various purposes, whether those be capital projects, road maintenance projects, or law enforcement purposes. About 3.3 million of that 12.4 million balance is assigned for various purposes, and the primary one being capital projects of the city. And again, as I mentioned, approximately 5.8 million is unassigned at year end, and again is available for ongoing operations and spending of the city. So the rest of the notes are really devoted primarily to the pension and the post-employment benefit disclosures. So there's quite a few pages and detailed information about how those liabilities are calculated and what they represent. Again, it's some required information that's there, but again, provide some good detail about how those liabilities that you see arise. After the footnotes, we move into the required supplementary information section. That begins on page 62 and goes through page 72. This provides some required information regarding the pension and again the post-employment benefits of the city. Again, provides in addition to the footnotes that cover them, presents some annual and trend information regarding the liabilities and the funding. So again, there's some good information over the past few years about how the liabilities have changed for both pension and post-employment benefits. Now, after the required supplementary information, we get into the remainder of the statements, which are really some more detailed schedules of the information that I've talked about. So where up in the front we had the summarized governmental funds with the balance sheets and income statements. Now back in this section we have more detailed information, and it provides comparisons with the current year actual amounts with budgets and with prior information. So you can see that for all the city's funds. And again, provides some good detailed information for your review as to how the revenues that came in and the expenditures in each of the different funds and how they compare to what was there last year as well as what was budgeted. So after that is we get to page 125, which is the statistical section. And pages 125 through 153, again, are the statistical section and schedules for these statements. Now, this section is required when an entity is submitting their statements for that award that I spoke about earlier in the presentation. So again, if you submit for that award, they're expecting to see this section. So this section is basically some pretty good information about the city and some useful 10-year trend information. It presents information about revenues, the long-term debt, demographics, operating information, and again, kind of gives some information over a 10-year period. Some of the schedules are current year versus a 10-year look back. So again, there's some good trend information about how the things have changed in the city over the past 10 years. After that, we get into the single audit. Now, the single audit begins on page 154 and goes through 164. And this is the section that covers the expenditures of federal funds. So when you have expenditures of a certain level of federal money, when you exceed that level, they require a single audit, some additional analysis and work related to how some of the federal money was spent. And so that's where this section presents that information and the results of our testing. And so, again, that comes in at the end of the statements and is again required once you have that, hit that certain level of funding. That really summarizes the statements themselves. We have another letter that we issued along with the statements, but before I moved on to that, I wanted to see if anyone had any questions about the statements themselves.
I don't know if you can say this or not, but would you say overall we're in a good financial position compared to what other entities you see and things like that?
Yeah, you know, as I was mentioning earlier on, again, at year end, the city has about almost $26 million of net position, which, you know, I think puts it in a good position. How that compares, I'd have to take more of an analysis of how that compares, but again, if you're having a net positive position in a time where a lot of these pension and OPEB liabilities are climbing, I think that's a good spot to be. So,
Okay.
And again, you've got fund balances of the funds of the city were about 12.4, and you know they all increased during the past year. So again, trending
The trends are moving in the right direction.
Trending in the right direction, exactly.
Okay.
You might comment too, because you kind of glossed over it, but on the statement you made about the reduction in the bonds, if I looked at the right page, it was almost $6.5 million, I think, and that's a pretty good reduction on top of when you consider the net number that you said of over 25 or 26 mil, and then on top of that, actually factoring in that bond reduction, which is really, I think, good for a city. Yeah, I think I forgot what page I didn't write it down, but it's in there somewhere.
Right. So, as you mentioned, for the governmental funds, there was a reduction in long-term liabilities of almost $7 million during the year. And again, part of that is payment of the bonds and the notes payable according to the payment schedules. Part of that is changes in those pension liabilities. And I mentioned earlier on that the pension liabilities have a significant impact.
Yeah, that's about 8.4 million or 4.8 million, I think, or something like that.
Right, right. So the changes in that impact that number as well, but yes, a $7 million change in reduction is.
Yeah, I mean, because you're over you're over $500,000, give or $550 a month or whatever the math is. That's on top of it. That's I think it's really good because if you had even if you had a solid financial number like the 25 or 6 million at the end, but didn't have any reduction in debt, you're kind of kidding yourself. It's like almost you're not paying the bills. Sure. But I think by staying ahead of the game, sure. That's really good for a city, and as well as I think when you look at the numbers on the pension number, which is in the 40s, like 42 million or something, that's still a good percentage compared to some of the other cities. And my esteemed colleague to my right was just telling me that some cities we're in the 40% range, and some people are under 15%.
Sure, absolutely right.
So, I mean, those are positives about it.
All right, any other questions?
Did you reference the schedule before for the pension contributions going forward? Is that contained in the report anywhere?
The pages, let's see. Pages 62 through, I believe, 72 present the changes from year to year, going from 2021 back to 2014. So not on a going forward basis, but you can see how things have changed from this year, going back into the past.
Right, they continue to go up, and they're going to continue to go up until our fund is 100% funded or whatever the statutory 90%. Is it 90 or 100? It doesn't matter.
Right.
But there's no schedule for that. That'll probably come from the
Police pension.
Police pension, they have their own financial
Yeah,
statements.
the actuary publishes that.
There will be an actuary report that has projected payments that are going to be required as well as the funding of it.
And that's a function also of the earnings of the fund too, so that all goes.
Certainly, yeah.
A few years ago, we did pass a funding plan. The city council did pass a funding plan for the pension fund.
Right.
And I believe that there's 1 year left of that, and we've exceeded that. So, projections and stuff.
Excellent.
So you can
Thank you, Jan.
go on. Continue, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. Any other questions about the statements? Okay, so in addition to the statements themselves, we issue a separate letter, which is what we call our conclusion letter. It really just summarizes some of the key matters of the audit and basically how we felt the audit went, how we felt it went. So just a couple things that I wanted to point out here. From our standpoint, we feel that the financial statement disclosures, the footnotes and whatnot, were neutral, consistent, and clear. We encountered no significant difficulties dealing with management while completing our audit. We had no disagreements during the process of the audit, and generally felt that the audit went very well. I wanted to thank Jan and the entire staff for getting us our information, in a very timely manner, well organized and complete. So again, I wanted to say thanks to the entire staff. But again, that's kind of the summary of how we felt it went. Any questions about that letter, or again, any other questions about the statements?
All right, thank you, Frank. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right,
Nice job.
if nothing else, we'll move right along. Under the consent calendar, we've got the approval of minutes of the city council meeting from July 19th, 2022, the approval of the payroll and voucher list for the period ending July 29th, 2022, approval of request from the Blue Cap Foundation to conduct their tag day on the designated corners in Palos Heights in accordance with the city code on October 7th and 8th, 2022. Need a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Clifford, second by Alderman McGovern. Discussion? Roll call.
Alderman Basso.
Aye.
Alderman Lewandowski.
Aye.
Alderman Key.
Yes.
Alderman McGrogan.
Yes.
Alderman McGovern.
Yes.
Alderman Clifford.
Aye.
That's it.
Motion carries.
All right. Any sealed bids tonight?
No bids.
All right. Under my report, nothing under general report. On number 7, yesterday we had a liquor commission hearing. I interviewed Jose Garcia, the operator of the restaurant, the Taqueria Gervais, right? Gervais, okay, got that right. Over in the Indian Trails Shopping Center. And he's looking for a liquor license, full-service liquor license. I think one of the good things about this is another situation where we've had a merchant who's got a business here in town for a couple of years and has decided to expand. He's going to actually take over the next storefront and make a sit-down restaurant besides his carry-out and limited sit-down now. So, he came through. He's got some great plans and passed all of our tests that we had. And so with that, I would look for an approval to adopt an ordinance increasing the number of liquor licenses by 1 for the Taqueria Gervais at 6523 West 127th Street.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Key. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman
Question.
McGovern. Discussion?
Question. Is there any discussion on hours of how late he's going to be serving liquor, or his hours of operation that I'm not familiar with?
Jose, what are your hours there?
For the hours?
Yes, try to.
Hello, thank you for the time. Yeah, the hours for the operation for us is, the latest is on Fridays and Saturdays to 11. And from the other days to 10.
To 10. Okay.
Any other questions?
It's no package goods.
No.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Great. Any other questions? All right. Motion? Roll call?
Alderman Clifford.
Aye.
Alderman McGovern.
Yes.
Alderman McGrogan.
Yes.
Alderman Key.
Yes.
Alderman Lewandowski.
Aye.
Alderman Basso.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, as you remember last meeting, we approved going to a budget situation here in St. Paul Sites. So what I'm looking for is an approval to appoint the City Administrator David Stroh as the Budget Officer.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Key,
Second.
second by Alderman McGovern. Discussion?
Is this an added duty to his already activities?
Not really.
Not really. I mean,
Not really, just a title?
just a title change. We need to appoint a budget officer.
All right.
Roll call.
Alderman Key.
Yes.
Alderman Basso.
Aye.
Alderman Clifford.
Aye.
Alderman Lewandowski.
Aye.
Alderman McGovern.
Yes.
Alderman McGrogan.
Yes.
Okay. And that's all I have. City Clerk?
No report this evening.
City Treasurer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No report tonight.
All right, City Treasurer is not available tonight. Any communications? Anyone have? Okay. Citizens wishing to address the council?
Oh, surprise.
Harlan Wyboda, 7640 West 135th Street, Orland Park. I'm here to talk about 151.20. 151.20 is a city general rule which states that no development shall adversely affect the water flows of an adjacent property to or from it in any way, shape, or form. Not in those exact words, but that's for my remembrance of the. And so for everybody here that doesn't know, I am a government employee. I am also a trustee of the union for my employer, for where I work, for my union. And in doing so, I'm used to dealing with the government a little bit, and they have a tendency to have a game plan. And they seem to follow the same game plan, and this is why I had to privately come up with a game plan to get the city of Palos Heights to admit, after 9 years, that they adversely affected my water. Sadly to say, the city didn't admit it to me. If it wasn't for the Freedom of Information request, nobody would have ever said, I'm sorry, I apologize, and we will do what it takes to correct the situation. No, it was said in a question that was asked from a county official to the city of Palos Heights. And the answer from the city of Palos Heights was, the question was, the builder to the east was allowed to keep and spread the fill from a 10-foot basement excavation, thus impeding the natural flow of water from our property. That was the question I asked the city of Palos Heights. I then relayed that question to the county. The county emailed the city of Palos Heights, and the answer from the city of Palos Heights was, any new development will reroute the flow of water, but the existing flow pattern should be maintained. Exactly what this ordinance says. But unfortunately, as my legal counsel had told me, my legal counsel says, when you change someone's water flow, it's your responsibility to make sure it flows. You don't just say, well, it should have worked, it could have worked. We told them time and time again, this is why we had the 10-point plan, was to show you that we told them over and over again that they were hurting my property. They killed 4 trees. They killed 15 bushes. I've spent over $7,000 in trying to rectify this. And the city never once acknowledged it. They never once apologized. Today, hallelujah, thank you, Mr. Strauss, Mayor Strauss, I'm sorry. The county is at least trying to help me, but unfortunately, we still got a long ways to go because the culvert that has been the biggest obstacle because my water flow was stopped, the culvert is still there. And until the culvert gets removed, I am always going to have dead trees, dead bushes, and a flooded backyard. Every one of you lives in the city of Palos Heights. Every one of you would be up in arms if you were fighting for 9 years to try to get this rectified. I have lived in the city of Palos Heights since 1990. I was supposed to be protected. The man that I respect the most after the mayor is Bill Chakowski. When I put an addition on my house, Bill Chakowski, I had a contractor that was doing some things that he shouldn't have been doing. Bill Chakowski came over and said, whoa, wait a minute. We can't allow this. This is not good for the homeowner. I want you to fix this and I want you to take care of this. And this is what I expected of my city officials when they knew that I was complaining and complaining and complaining. Even the city engineer, Morris, or Rumis, or whatever, however you pronounce his name, he knew what the problem was, and what did he do? He passed it off to the county. He basically said, we're not going to approve this project. We are not going to approve this project until the county says the culvert, which is the main obstacle, is approved. And so lo and behold, 3 years later, the county gives the builder a culvert permit, even though they didn't make them change it, even though they know it was undersized, even though they knew it was the wrong material. And so now the city and the engineer for the city can say, we didn't do it, the county did it. Well, just as my attorney said, when you change someone's flow, it's your responsibility to make sure it flows. I have a tree that is worth, according to the landscaper, if I had to replace it, approximately $40,000 that has to be cut down. I have a tree that I planted for my wife's 60th birthday that is dead. And it's not because of something that I did. It is because of something that you allowed. Thank you. Oh, by the way, last subject. The 9th point of my 10-point plan was I knew that the city was going to retaliate against me. I knew that was going to come. Thus, I got my retaliation letter from the city, and it's a shame. It's a shame that the city retaliated against me and sent me a cease and desist letter. It's a shame that the city, people who are in charge of the city, don't even know where I live.
Thank you. Right. Any other residents? Okay. Standing committees, Alderman McGrogan?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Basso?
Yes, Mayor, I have a couple of things that are not on the agenda, but I'd like to mention. Number one is, and forgot to mention this as the weather's been so horrendous lately, please check with your neighbors and friends and relatives, especially the elderly, to make sure that they're A-OK, because we're going to go back into a heat wave again, and I know a lot of people suffer when the temperatures go way up. I saw on the sign out in front that the rec center is open as a cooling center, and I'm sure there's other places that seniors can go if they don't have the proper air conditioning in their residence. Also, I'd like to mention a thing that's in the newsletter this month from the police department. It's called Palos Heights Police Department Surveillance Camera Registration and Mapping Program, called in short, SCRAM. A little bit about the program. The collaborative initiative invites residents to provide information about their home security camera system for the purpose of obtaining video footage in the event of a specific incident in the area. So in other words, if you have a doorbell camera, front door camera on your house, the police department, in short, would like to know that you have one and that you would be willing to let them access it if there's an event in or around your home. So just in case that some event were captured on video, they don't know that unless they know that you have a camera. So it's a voluntary program. The police do not have permission outright to access your videotapes. They can't access your security system, and they're just asking for your cooperation as another crime-fighting tool. So if you're interested in that, give the police department a phone call and register your cameras, and maybe we can all help out our city keep safe that way. So thank you very much. That's the end of my report.
Municipal grounds and property, Alderman Begley, does she have anything?
She has nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Planning and zoning, Alderman McGovern?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have two things. Item 9, there's a motion to authorize an oversized detached garage containing an enclosed area of 864 feet in lieu of the ordinance of 660 square feet and a height of 17 feet 1 inch in lieu of the 15 feet and the 6-foot side yard setback along the west property line in lieu of the required 10-foot side yard setback, which side yard setback variance is limited to the distance of the length of the detached garage and the rear yard of the residential property at 7620 Carmichael Drive, and that's contained in property the PIN number 2325-301-09540.
Second?
Moved by Alderman McGovern, second by Alderman Key. Discussion? Roll call.
Is this an absolute necessarily have to be that close to the side yard being the size of the garage there? Is there, it seems to be awful, it seems to be awful close to be, are you asking to be 6 feet away or 4 feet away?
6 feet away.
6 feet away from the thing, and the reason for the height of the garage is 2 feet 1 inch above the normal for,
So I can be able to access walking up there, just because I'm over 6 foot tall, so
Mm-hmm.
just have easier access to walk up.
because you had mentioned earlier about possible office space that we took.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a pretty steep peak up top, and the sides are going to be pretty low. So, I mean, if I need an office, I'm just going to do it in the single car garage that's attached to the house now.
Mhm.
But I'm not really too concerned about that. So.
Did you ever give any consideration that we talked about in zoning previously about your architect attaching that to the house?
We did, but just to be able to walk through to the backyard from the front of the house and having it detached instead of going all the way around, I mean, to me, it just makes sense to have it open and have the space to be able to walk through.
Because I'd like to just amend on the use of it, that the upstairs, if this passes, that be used for storage and storage only and not for any personal or office use.
You okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, the 6 foot variance on the side is really just to create less dead space over there. That was my thought process.
They gave me a thing of some of these houses around here. I drove to all of these, they talked. Seen the one in Harold. That happens to be an attached garage that's 15 feet away from the lot line. The one at 123 Harold, there was no such address. The one at 123 74th, that wasn't it. And the one at 124 23 74th Avenue, there was no such address. I think they got the addresses wrong on these properties because I didn't see what was depicted in these pictures there.
I mean, I personally drove through the neighborhoods and just picked out some detached garages that I thought were, similar in size. And
Yeah, because the one,
there was pictures and everything that were attached in the PowerPoint presentation that we had.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, my neighbor to the west side of us, they've got a detached garage in the back, and we didn't even really put that on there.
yeah, this is the one at 7660 124th place. You can see it's moved back off to the side there. You recognize that?
So there's another one on the
I'll get to it. And then this is your property. This is one here that you listed at 12333 Harold, which there's no big garage there that's attached. There is this one, which is about 8 feet away. And then there is this one at
The aerial.
121 in Harold, and that's 15 feet away, and it's an attached garage. So, I mean, the pictures you're given are,
I mean, they should be pretty accurate from what I.
well, one's an attached, this is detached, that's what I'm saying. They're not like for like, most of them.
So I didn't go into their backyards and look to see.
Well,
if
these
they
were all from the street.
Yeah, I
I
was just
didn't
able
either.
to see, to me, from my vision, it looked like they were detached. And then from the aerial view that we put on there, I mean, I thought it
Well,
looked
that's
detached
street
as
view.
well.
That's a street view. I drove by there when they gave me this list to see the properties that was on it. So I just got this today, so I took my time to go by and see the ones that were listed there. And these addresses weren't the same. The garage might be a different street that you're on and you thought you were on, but these houses here weren't on these pictures that come off to here. So they don't match.
I
But
mean, maybe the addresses are wrong, but
There are plenty of examples in town, especially in the older parts of town, where there's a ranch one-car garage at the end that they're turning into office space or a family room or something. This family is the reason that they're asking for the variance is to get a driveway to get into this, garage. And if we pull the garage off the property line any more than it is, you're going to be asking them to, because there's trees, and so they're going to have to go around the tree, then back this way to get them the house, and then back this way into the garage. And so that's why, the original project was a much bigger.
The other one, I agree with you. The other one was way out of line. It was almost 1,200 square feet. It was
so we recommended that they rework this, and they did.
I know he did.
And so.
Well, all I'm saying is that people know that I did go around and look at them, and I'm just asking pertinent questions. One, the height, it's not to be used for personal space, living space, period.
No, won't be.
Storage only, that's the amendment I want on there, is going to give you this height on this.
Okay.
The 6 feet, I did see that, is a little tight there. I did look from the street towards your back, you'd have to make that kick. I understand that part of it. That's what I'm trying to say here.
There's a garage that just went up on 76th Avenue, I think just south of us. That's 1,200 square foot.
I don't usually drive around looking at all of these places unless they give me this, and I get asked to go look at them.
I did all the addresses. I thought they were accurate. I apologize if they weren't.
I could show you those pictures and the ones I took on the phone from the thing, because I sent them to the business guy, said, are these correct? But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I call it the original question.
All right. Amendment is, the motion is amended. Roll call.
Alderman Lewandowski.
Aye.
Alderman Basso.
Aye.
Alderman Key.
Yes.
Alderman McGovern.
Yes.
Alderman McGrogan.
Yes.
Alderman Clifford.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, sir, thank you very much.
All right.
I have a comment, if I may.
Sure. Over with.
These pictures on these garages of other situations and other possible variances are irrelevant, doesn't matter. We're supposed to assess every situation individually, which is impossible because here's a perfect example of the other guy got it, I want it. So there's multiple variances on here. I think the request is excessive. Every time we give somebody more, if you think about it, somebody else is getting less. If we think that a 850 square foot garage is appropriate for Payless Heights with a potential living space upstairs, then we ought to amend our ordinances to say such, so that everybody can enjoy that extra space and extra situation.
Well, then maybe the Planning and Zoning Committee should look at that.
It's fine by me.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Next thing.
Okay, I have one more thing. Motion to adopt an ordinance amending Title 15, Land Use, Chapter 153 of the Zoning Code, Section 153.03, Definitions, and Chapter 156, Property Maintenance Code, Section 156.15, Definitions, and Chapter 156, Property Maintenance Code, Section 156.16, Prohibited Conduct.
Okay. Motion by Alderman McGovern. I won't ask you to say that again. Is there a second?
I had to read it 4 times.
Second by Alderman Lewandowski. Discussion?
So, do you want to explain what this is all about?
The only thing we're actually doing is we're tightening up the city ordinance. And you will now be required, if you're going to lease any part of your property, you'll be required to lease it 24/7 for a minimum of 30 days. And anything more than 30 days, you have to notify the city, and you can get it up to 6 months.
You can't do it under 30 days. So.
But no, you can't do it under 30 days.
Right.
Yeah, what I was told is basically about an Airbnb over in Westgate, in New Westgate. The guy turned his property in 1-day rentals, 2-day rental properties, renting his pool out by the hour. And that's why the I asked about why all the housekeeping here, and it's pertained to that, so this doesn't get widespread around here.
It's to define some of the definitions in the ordinance. Okay.
Did
Roll
we-
call.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Did we vote on item 9?
Yes, we did.
We did.
Yeah, you voted
I
yes.
didn't.
Okay.
How am I recorded as a vote?
Yes.
Ordered as an aye.
No.
Okay. All right.
I'm a no.
You're still passed.
Thank you.
All right. Roll call on this one?
Alderman Lewandowski.
Aye.
Alderman Basso.
We're on the 10 now.
I'm on the phone, aye.
Alderman Key.
Yes.
Alderman McGrogan.
Yes.
Alderman McGovern.
Yes,
Alderman Clifford.
Aye.
and that's the end of my report, sir.
Thank you. Recreation, Alderman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we've had a concert series this summer that's been very enjoyable. We've enjoyed a lot of nice weather, and the biggest concert of the year is coming this Thursday. It's the Chicago Experience. It's traditionally, I think this is maybe the 4th year in a row that we've had this band, and they've been traditionally our biggest draw. And so come early and take advantage of some vendors that we have there. But, grab a meal in town and bring your lawn chairs and enjoy this concert. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Roads of construction, Alderman Clifford.
The asphalt or the quarries are back making rock and supplies are off strike. Our road program for this year will be up and running within 2 weeks. We're doing various patching with what we have available right now throughout areas in the town. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we'll be seeing substantial work being done, including McIntosh subdivision over there and 69th Street and a few others. So
Westgate, yeah.
we're on the move.
Great, thanks, Rick. License, permits, and franchises, Alderman Lewandowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no report this evening.
Water and sewer, Alderman
I'll
Bynum.
take that.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to solicit bids for the 2 million gallon ground level water reservoir rehabilitation.
Moved by Alderman Key, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Lewandowski, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's
And
it.
that concludes his report.
How about some business and economic development? Anything yet?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say a big thank you to the countless volunteers that ran the car show this year. I think they had a record number of autos being viewed, and another hot night, but it was, the restaurants were filled, and a lot of people visited, a lot of cars were there to be viewed. I know that when I gave my award to who I gave it to, they were very thankful, and especially the cars. I was shocked this year viewing some of the cars that were on the concourse. They have some cars that are just, priceless, really. And to see those in person and to realize that, some people that live very close by have those and maintain those and come out and allow us really to take a look at them was really nice.
Yeah.
And so, there's just a lot of people in the planning, in getting those cars in place, in, selling the raffle tickets and all kinds of things. And so thank you to all the volunteers.
Particularly Bob Starzyk, because he puts
Yes.
his heart in that things.
And then I think, I have a brain freeze, but Jan on the beautification committee and Ann Gerzaitis,
Right.
they both
Oh, yeah, there are a lot of them,
are lieutenants in the effort, so thank you
Right.
to them as well.
Great.
And that concludes my report, Mr.
Great.
Mayor.
Cable TV, Alderman?
I have no report this evening, Mayor.
All right, any old business? Citizens wish to address, answer questions? Any new business?
Just a notification before you hit the gavel.
I'm waiting.
I got a thing, I would say, I thought I'd read it. And, over the years, I keep reading about the moving wall from Vietnam. And I was wondering about the feasibility of us looking into that and having it at our town one of these days on our servicemen. But I got this mailed to me, and that's why I brought up the idea, and I just read you real quick. So there are 58,267 names on the wall. 39,996 were just 22 years or younger. 8,283 were 19. 33,103 were 18. 12 were 17. 5 soldiers were 16. There were 3 sets of fathers in the wall. 31 sets of parents lost 2 of their sons. 997 were killed their first day. 1,448 were killed on their last day. 8 women were on the wall. They were nurses. 244 soldiers were awarded the Medal of Honor during the war, and 153 of them were on the wall. I'm just mentioning that because, you know,
I knew three.
the project, pardon?
I knew 3 of them.
Yeah, and one of the reasons is a gentleman sitting next to me, a Purple Heart recipient from this wall. And then those people that served were, that gave it all were on the wall, and those that didn't had every opportunity or put themselves in line to be placed on the wall. They survived. So I'd like to say, you know, maybe we could look into.
Well, actually, I was asked, it's going to be at Marine Valley, I believe, within the next 6 weeks or so.
Yeah,
I was
well,
asked to be there, so.
Yeah, but I'm just looking thing
Yeah.
here, and that the other thing was about the mention, we talked a while ago about some type of statutes, fire or police for the 9/11 thing, the two, if we could get somebody to look into that too.
Sure, all right.
All right, other than that, that's it.
Entertain a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Be safe. Stay cool.